you can't take a 12-week trip and get to another star system, right? The technology stopped developing at an exponential rate in about 1970, and we've been kind of stuck. And maybe at some point someone will invent an engine that'll get us off planet, and when they get to the point where we get a near faster than light drive, then we'll get back to that, and you'll see the human condition driving to go to space. But I've said before we go to outer space, we go to cyberspace. And it turns out that what got invented in the meantime, while all us science fiction freaks were focused upon going to outer space and colonizing the stars.
Michael Saylor, the co-founder of MicroStrategy, believes that Bitcoin is the emergence of the self in cyberspace. Although it is quite risky, it provides a sense of freedom in the territory of crypto. He pointed out that more high-net-worth individuals, HNIs, should invest in Bitcoin for it to grow. However, many of them will pop up when we will least expect them to, and in astonishing volumes. According to Saylor, the political framework works well for other HNIs, and that is why they are not invested in Bitcoin to that extent. The key to rational behavior is a decentralized world separated from power and a set of checks and powers in the government, he said. A government with one central authority tends to be extremely authoritarian in its behavior. Saylor pointed out how there is a great amount of wealth in the Middle East and South America, but these people cannot openly trade Bitcoin in fear of being targeted by their own country. The concept of Bitcoin pertains to both its mobility and invisibility, as people are not required to introduce their wealth to the world. Saylor further advises people not to reveal that they hold Bitcoin if they are in an unstable political situation. Join us in this video as Saylor explores the hidden powers of indestructibility and immortality that Bitcoin confers on its holders and users. As you watch, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe and drop any comments below.
We invented cyberspace, and Satoshi Nakamoto combined proof of work and cryptography in order to create a physical reality, in order to create digital energy, digital matter, digital power in cyberspace. And we're just coming to grips with what it means to have manifested cyberspace in a way that's tangible in the past few years. But it is now possible for a human being that is economically vulnerable, that is insecure, in 12 weeks to migrate their wealth to cyberspace. Just like it was once possible to go from Virginia to Kentucky in 12 weeks, or from Kentucky to Nebraska in 12 weeks. The 12-week jump is kind of like the most that a typical family or a typical human can do. You don't get there, when you orange pill someone, you go down the rabbit hole, you don't get there in 12 hours. You don't get there in 12 minutes. But if it took you 12 years, nobody would go, right? And so all of the ideology and the aspiration in the world is not getting us to Alpha Centauri or Proxima Centauri in 12 weeks. That is not a solution. Cyberspace is a solution. And pursuant to Robert's point, what if we were all indestructible and immortal? Okay, well, it is now possible to make yourself economically indestructible and economically immortal in 12 weeks. You have to have the conviction to do it, but people risked their life and their livelihood. The people that got on that boat from Rotterdam to Philadelphia, there was going to be a 5 or 10% mortality rate. Sometimes there's a 20% mortality rate or a 30% mortality rate. They risked their life because it was just so awful where they were coming from. And they made a very arduous journey. And I would argue that getting on a sailing ship or a wooden ship and floating around in the Atlantic Ocean for 12 weeks is a little more difficult than figuring out how to store your private keys and how to convert sell your property and convert it to Bitcoin and get it on the base chain and do whatever you're going to do. So not only is it possible to make yourself economically indestructible and economically immortal, it is now possible, and this is just a development of recent time, that you could record this 1-hour podcast and make it 100 hours of podcast. And in a world where you store it on a big tech network that is subject to censorship, it may be ripped off the network. if you upload it to a certain company's website and a certain government doesn't agree with what you said, anything that you said, Robert, or anything that you might have said, Eric, they will rip and shred your intellectual body of knowledge, your intellect, out of cyberspace for all of eternity and censor you. But you can now hash this video. You could take your body of knowledge, you could take your book, you could take your video, you could take your intellect, and you can burn it onto the Bitcoin base layer, and you can become intellectually indestructible and intellectually immortal.
Saylor further believes that Bitcoin has an enormous capital in its ecosystem, and over time, all the capital from tokens and stablecoins will flow to Bitcoin, as it will be the most viable option. This is because people will lose faith in other cryptocurrencies and networks, but they won't move to fiat money, because of which they will start using Bitcoin. He predicts that the next wave will bring the meltdown of crypto and the melt-up of Bitcoin, while the wave after that will result in Bitcoin being the highest form of currency. Saylor believes that Bitcoin will outlast everything except humanity. Let us now continue with the video.
Better world full of prosperity and liberty. This is a core value, right? I mean, you see that. And, build a bridge, build a ship, build an airplane, build a nuclear reactor, build a spaceship, build the internet, build a computer, engineer a better world, and invent antibiotics, upgrade the world, and then find a way for people to realize their pursuit of happiness, freedom, liberty, empowerment, right? I think that's in our nature. In the Western, it's a value, maybe it's a human value everywhere. So I could point to hundreds and hundreds of philosophers, right? And hundreds, all of the literature. So I think this is just consistent with the engineering ethos, which is, why do you want a car, that flies on a reaction drive, at the speed of sound? And why do you want to give it to everybody? Why do you want a teleporter? Because you can. Because life is better with it than without it. Engineer a better world. Inventions in cyberspace offer the promise of intellectual and economic immortality and indestructibility. And in that world, where we have a mass migration of people, libertarians that want a better life for themselves, their family, their children, their children's children, you can now go to cyberspace. You can now take your ideas with you. You can now take your money with you. And the more people that go to that undiscovered country, right, that new world, the stronger it gets, the stronger cyberspace gets, right? Every Bitcoin miner is a digital fortress defending sovereignty in cyberspace. The more we support them, the more indestructible we all get. And so Bitcoin it's a cyber world that was once defended by 1 exahash. An Amazon computer, or Amazon or Google or Facebook or a government could have shut it down. And today it's defended by 350 exahash. And if you took over every computer on Earth, you couldn't stop it, right? It has crossed this frontier where now it is its own country, it is its own place, and we are only beginning to figure out what aspects of ourself, our intellect, our economic being, our political being, our physical being can be migrated. And I believe it started economically, it will go to intellectually, but at some point you'll be able to migrate your business, your vocation and your politics into cyberspace, where they achieve a degree of indestructible immortality. And that will take us to that virtuous cycle of cooperation and civility, because now people with guns and people with lawyers and people with laws are not going to be able to steal, corrupt, and destroy you.
The federal judge overseeing the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's case against Binance and Binance U.S. declined to order a temporary restraining order freezing the U.S. trading platform's assets. That would allow the U.S. arm of the company to continue doing business while hashing out restrictions with the regulator. If the two sides can agree on limits, Judge Amy Berman Jackson of the D.C. District Court said, there's no need for a restraining order. In the meantime, the judge ordered Binance US to provide a list of its business expenses to the court and ordered the parties to continue negotiating. In a packed Washington courtroom, the judge hammered SEC attorneys about their motion to freeze all of the company's assets until it could prove that no one from Binance's global platform, including Changpeng Zhao, had access to its private keys. At times, the judge seemed frustrated by the responses she was hearing when asking whether any Binance US customer funds had left the US after multiple SEC attorneys said they were mainly concerned about the fact that Binance's global platform controlled enough private key shards to move funds. The SEC sued Binance and Binance US alongside Binance founder Changpeng Zhao last week, alleging they were operating as an unregistered securities exchange, brokerage, and clearing agency. The regulator also alleged massive commingling of funds, allowing Zhao, a Canadian national living in the UAE, access to Binance US customer assets. The SEC followed the lawsuit up with a motion for a temporary restraining order. The crypto exchanges pushed back against the claims in their response to the motion, arguing the SEC hadn't conclusively proven they listed any securities and saying the regulator hadn't shown any proof supporting an emergency motion. We are yet to know what the outcome of the Binance versus SEC lawsuit will be, but for now, it seems the two parties are better off coming to an understandable negotiation that doesn't require an explicit court order. What do you think about Saylor's other world? Is it achievable? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Also remember to give us a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching.